Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 23 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 47 today for the Austrian Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the previous one at Portimao, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. Like Monaco, we had a bit of everything around Portimao. It wasn't maybe as mental as the Monaco GP, but there were still some thrills, some crashes, and some late drama as for the second year in a row, we gambled on a bit of a two-stop. This one was a little bit different. It was just all down to tyre wear on the dry tyres rather than inters being involved. But that was still a bit of a late call from us with 10 laps to go, strapping on a brand spanking new set of soft tyres. And it was just all push from there to make overtakes as quickly as we could. Eventually, climbing up back into the points, overtaking Leclerc here. As you can see, as you look back on a few moments from last episode, the drama at the end, like I said, with some inter-Red Bull family drama with the AlphaTauri taking out the Red Bull and some last gasp DNFs as Bottas had an engine failure, not for the first time. I think that's his third overall DNF from a mechanical failure of sorts, and it even started raining, actually, I lie, right at the end of the race, but no inters were involved around Portimao, unlike the last season at the same track, or the previous race this season at Monaco. But it means going into then the Austrian GP, round 8 at the halfway point of the season. Once we complete this race, we are still in second place in the championship, but the gap is still quite large to Oscar Piastri as he continues just to do enough to maintain that lead. McLaren as well maintaining their lead in the constructors that they haven't given up since the start of the season, and we still remain in second place and actually a decent amount of points, I would say, ahead of Red Bull, who obviously have won 2 races. We've now won one ourselves at the Monaco GP, but still plenty of work to do on the car. And I'm happy to report that finally that engine power upgrade is going to be coming our way 3 days time in the activity timeline. And because we now have spec 3 on the powertrain HQ, or I should say we've actually got the simultaneous upgrade on the HQ, I can now actually purchase that final ERS upgrade as well. But before I do that, I'm just going to try and get the morale up as much as I can of that department, because there's a 40% chance of failure of that upgrade if I purchase it. So I tried to boost the morale as much as I could. To my surprise, having 15%, 10% added on morale only reduced the failure chance by 3%. I don't know how that exactly actually works, but there you go. But we have to go ahead and purchase it at some point. We can't just wait around for it. So we bought it, so we've got the ultimate engine power upgrade coming this episode, and next episode, if there's no failure, that ultimate ERS upgrade. That means the only upgrades we have left on the engine side of things are all to do with fuel. So even though on the R&D chart it may look like we're down on performance, it's really just with the fuel levels, like how much fuel we start the race with, so that's no bother. And so that's why now, at this point, after purchasing that upgrade, I'm happy to now put a further 1,000 R&D points towards our 2026 Season 4 engine build. So we're now on 7,000 points in total. We're not going to quite put any money away to it yet. We're still, hanging on to that 40 million. I'm waiting to re-sign Gasly in the mid-season contract, and then we'll save up to spend the 10 million to actually finish the project of building the engine. And then, of course, the R&D is just all about how good of an engine we actually have. So with 7,000 R&D, we are now not too far off having a mid-tier engine, just 2,000 more and we'll be there at the mid-tier, which would be pretty decent. Of course, we'll aim for the high, but I don't know, because of the upgrades we've had to make this season, maybe we're going to have to accept a mid-tier engine. But as we go into the Austrian GP, it's good timing for this ultimate engine upgrade on the power side of things. So you can see Alpine, they clearly make this similar sort of upgrade. So they've brought an ultimate upgrade of sorts, so they continue progress with us to close up to the top pack of the top 4 teams. McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari, Merc, and Red Bull, technically Red Bull are now the best team on the grid. By a tiny pixel, they're ahead of McLaren. Ferrari pretty close as well. So is it going to be trouble for McLaren? They haven't made the most of their, dominant car in the R&D chart, because they haven't won every single race. They have looked pretty damn quick and dominant, in flashes, but lately they've also been having quite a few hiccups. And are they going to rue those those hiccups very, very soon, because Red Bull in their home race may just come out swinging this race weekend. They've got 2 chances to do so, of course, because we've got a sprint race and then the normal one as well. Overcast conditions for now. I don't think there's any rain forecast for this qualifying day on Friday, but there may be some rain possibly for later on the race weekend. And I must say, going into qualifying around the Red Bull Ring, the car felt a little stiff, a little unresponsive. You know, it was almost like I was chasing my own rear end and the car was driving me, in terms of I didn't feel like I was in complete control of the turning and kind of the rotation of the car mid-corner. So lacking maybe a little bit of pace and confidence. You know, only up to P11. We finish in P12. Gasly P2, and he's 6/10 ahead of me. I know it's only Q1. We definitely could speed up in Q2 and Q3 as the circuit rubbers in, but it wasn't a massive confidence booster of the first lap. But, you know, the sprint weekend, it's difficult. You know, you have, you know, a bit of a different tyre allocation. Pressure's on, knowing that you've got a race to do the next day. 2 races, in fact, and of course that second race at the same time maybe alleviates pressure, because we know we can just make up positions if we had a bad qualifying. But of course, ideally, we want a good qualifying, a good sprint, a good race, and try and score some good points, especially with the new ultimate engine power upgrade. Who knows? Maybe the extra engine power is what made the car feel different. It honestly could be. It could be the power delivery now is actually more than I'm used to, and so I need to relearn a bit how to drive the car with that extra power. And thankfully, Q2 is not a problem for us. We do get through. It's very, very close here at Austria, of course. You know, you can see from Gasly to myself is all within 7/100ths of a second, so it's pretty darn close at the Red Bull Ring always. So small marginal gains on the second flying lap in Q2 guaranteed us place in the top 10 shootout. The same can't be said for Russell and Schumacher. Last race's race winner, Mick Schumacher, out in Q2 here, along with his teammate, won the Astons out. And a surprise entry from Ricciardo in the Alpine. Although I say surprise, Alpine with upgrades here as well. So we could be seeing another team throwing their hat into the ring for the top 10 and kind of mixing it up. But at the moment, all eyes then on this final set of qualifying laps in Q3 as the sun goes down. It all looks pretty picturesque here around Austria, but can we have a picturesque result for ourselves to try and match Pierre Gasly, who must be at least in the top 5, you could say, on the top left ladder there. For us, we're only gaining just about 1.6 tenths, and that's only enough to go P7. Gasly is in P5. It's eventually going to be P6, and it's a bit of a, disappointing end to qualifying, I guess. I was kind of hoping there was more in the tank there, but P9 and P6 is literally all we've got. And, in terms of my pace to Gasly, we're 2/10 off. So we've closed that kind of big gap we had to him in Q1. But he's only gone as high as P6. So that's clearly where the car is. Ferrari looking stronger. They've brought upgrades as well. So maybe shouldn't be so surprising. The big surprise for me is the fact that Alonso is the one that splits the 2 McLarens. Alonso and the Aston Martin on the front row for the sprint. And the 2 Red Bulls were down in the bottom half of the top 10 when they really should have been gunning to doing very well in quali in their home race, with now being technically the best team on the grid. So yeah, we've got a few question marks then in terms of actual pace then after the raft of upgrades for a few teams. But let's see how it goes in the sprint as we go to lights out, and we're underway from P9. A few slow starters, including Carlos Sainz. Same for Max Verstappen, who I think's dropped at least 2 positions then, as Ricciardo and Russell are ahead of him into turn 1. Oh, massive hit from Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris. The 2 pals off circuit have come together on it, and Sainz is out of this sprint, and it's an early lap 1 safety car. And just run back that replay of that start. Oh my days, how we have not got our own suspension, front wing damage, I'll never know. We got off very, very lightly there, and luckily, and now we're back in and engaging in this race on lap 4 as we get going once again. Piastri leads the way from Leclerc, the Ferrari, splitting the 2 McLarens, whereas Alonso's down in P5. He's had a shocker of a start then, before that safety car came out, going from P2 to P5, as we're now up the back of Lando Norris, one of the Red Bulls ahead of us, and then a Red Bull behind us, Verstappen looking to try and get back ahead ahead of Daniel Ricciardo after his poor start, as we're now having a bit of a wheel-to-wheel drag race with our title rival from last season. Of course, remember, Red Bull, we haven't raced them too much this season. We've kind of been far apart, but now looks like we're getting close together once again, but we make easy work of Lando to get up into P6. And now we're going to try and chase after Fernando Alonso, who's on the medium, so that maybe explains his poor start. No, the curb! The curb has spat us out in the middle sector. We've taken Lando Norris with us. We've taken an Alpine with us. And there's a bunch of cars ghosting through me. Albon out the session. Ricciardo out the session. And maybe even Lando Norris, and I'm still in the race, but we've got massive floor damage, and quite rightly, maybe a 5-second penalty. I mean, I think the penalty was technically for my hit on Ricciardo, as my car rolled backwards onto the circuit. I think we punted him, and that's what the penalty's for. It's not actually a penalty for my contact with Lando, which, to be fair, I'm a passenger at that point, and it's just unfortunate where Lando chose to go, and he's taken himself out of the race, really, by deciding to go right instead of left of me. And then Ricciardo and others were just passengers in terms of my car rolling back. So it's unfortunate. It's a large amount of damage now for the rest of this sprint. It won't matter. It won't matter. The damage won't matter because before we even get underway for the rest of this sprint, under the safety car, my engine has blown up. For the first time, to be fair, this season, the Renault Power Unit's actually been very, very kind to us this season so far. This is our first ever engine failure in Season 3. To be fair, it's maybe come at a good time because the rest of that sprint, I was not going to have any pace with, you know, very hefty floor and sidepod damage. So if it was going to happen anywhere, I maybe decided here in terms of in that scenario. But at the same time, remember, even if I limped home for P12, that's still P12 on the grid for tomorrow. So actually, I take that kind of back. I wish we could have at least stayed to hobble along because now I have to change my components. So the fact I finished last place because of the failure is one thing, and then I have to definitely start last because I have to take a penalty now to change my components midway through a session, breaking part firme in a race weekend to get that new component, which was the MGUK, I believe it was, that failed, which is annoying because I'm pretty sure the one I had was only like 20% worn. It was a very fresh component that's just randomly failed there. Kind of a shame we missed the rest of the sprint. Seems pretty bonkers. Max Verstappen came from P10 apparently all the way up to first place and won the sprint in that Red Bull. So he overtook 10 people or more in those last 6 laps after the safety car came in. Of course, we're a long way back, all the way in last place. It's going to be a bit of a long start, but hopefully there were glimpses of the pace being all right, you know. So let's just hope we can go well without making any more mistakes like that on the curb. For sure, going to be staying off that one in the full Grand Prix on the heavy fuel. Let's go to the grid.
Welcome from the beautiful Styrian Mountains for another chapter in the story of the Austrian Grand Prix. It's one of the shortest laps on the calendar today then, with 7 rights and just 3 lefts, making up the 10 corners of this high-speed circuit. Turn 2 is barely a corner at all. They'll be flat out through there, a left-hand kink into the uphill braking zone of Turn 3. Turns 1, 3 and 4 are all potential opportunities to overtake. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Oscar Piastri completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Leclerc, Bottas, Russell, Fernando Alonso, Gasly, Ocon, Mick Schumacher, Perez, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Sargent, Théo Pourchaire, Albon, Liam Lawson, Norris, Sainz, Stroll, Hulkenberg, and the owner-driver rounds off the grid. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. Anthony Davidson, a very warm welcome to you as you join me in the commentary box for today's event. We should talk about Williams. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
So despite the carnage that ensued in the sprint, obviously we are rock bottom because not only did we start, not finish the sprint, we also have the component change of 22 places, but we've got some, bigger names, near to us as well. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, Lando Norris in the Red Bull, so there may be some proper racing to be had in the first few laps, and it won't just be a case of cutting through, slower cars, because there are some pretty quick cars around this, but equally as well, that might just mean all of us can work together in a kind of way to cut through and get back to where we want to be, which is obviously the front end in the first half of the grid as we're lining up now for the race. Obviously, being the back of the grid, I understood that when I get into my grid slot, we're probably going to go away straight away. So I was taking my time to heat up the tyres. But to my surprise, as Hulkenberg's actually the last car that slots into his grid slot, we've not gone to 5 red lights. We're just sat here. The checkbox is green ahead of us. There's even that man on the right-hand side waving the green flag. So to all intents and purposes, we should be underway. We should be going to 5 red lights. But then I notice on the left, there is a car missing between Pourchaire there and Sainz. At least it looks like there is a car. There's a whole car on that row missing on the left-hand side. So is that the culprit of why we've not got underway? And if it is, where on earth is that car? Where is that car? Well, I'll tell you, he's still getting to the grid. Liam Lawson in the AlphaTauri. Where have you been, son? What happened? I saw him get underway when we started the formation lap. He's taken his sweet-ass time. He's making the entirety of the F1 world wait for him to get to this grid, and he just rocks up like, yep, sorry, lad, sorry I'm late, oh, yeah, nightmare traffic, and yeah, there he goes. Liam Lawson goes through the cars. He's lucky there's ghosting system like that. And he forms up, and we finally now can get underway. It's time for the Austrian Grand Prix. 5 red lights, and we are underway. A lot of wheel spin for the Sauber of Hulkenberg. A few slow starters ahead of us are going to slow us up as Albon, with a bit of a domino effect, slows Lando and Stroll and myself up. There's carnage, though, at turn 1. And maybe it was a good thing we didn't get underway well, because Hulkenberg now has been caught up in that. And Leclerc, oh, he did so well in the sprint. It's his turn now to come up with a DNF. It was Sainz in the sprint, and now it's Leclerc that is going to finish this race on lap 1. And it's another lap 1 safety car here around the Red Bull Ring. So it seems like here in Season 3, it's going to be absolute carnage and chaos at the Red Bull Ring as we once again get ready to go underway on towards lap 4 around this circuit. This time, though, it's the full race, but so far we've very much kind of had a mirroring pattern of the sprint race. Let's not mirror it exactly in terms of spinning it on the curb and having an engine failure then under a safety car. Please, let's not have that, as we're now looking to try maybe suss out where we can make a move, maybe on Lando Norris here on the inside. Easy does it. I was kind of worried he was going to pinch us here, but instead he's actually left us the room, and it is very much deja vu, worryingly, right now, as we're having another drag race wheel to wheel with our fellow compatriot, but we're going to get him once again down into this right-hander to get up into this time P18, though, not our lofty good points paying position. And we've got Alexander Albon, the other Aston Martin, who's ahead of us, although this is very weird. We've overtaken Lando in the same place. There's an Aston ahead of us again. It's feeling very familiar, but thankfully no spin this time in sector 2 for us. It's actually 2 by 2 here, as Lando tried to re-overtake me. Stroll side by side with Alexander Albon, and further up ahead, Logan Sargent and the Alfa Romeo Haas has been squeezed out, and he's down to P15. Can we make a pass on Albon? Big sent down the inside of him and Sargent. Oh, there's a pile-up ahead, though. There's a pile-up. I didn't even see that coming. 4 cars were blocking the circuit, and it's a red flag because I think the other Alfa Romeo Haas of Magnussen is out, and he was blocking the road. It's a red flag. How about that? So we've had a safety car and a red flag, and it's only been what, like 6 laps? This is turning into a race of attrition, really, basically. But this is why then our own teammate actually is involved in taking the suspension off the Haas, and that causes a bit of a pile-up. The 2 AlphaTauris inside of each other. I think that's Carlos Sainz with front wing damage, and he actually might be out of this Grand Prix because he ghosts away in the replay. So I think that might be a Ferrari double DNF. And look at this. Look at the weather. Look at the tyre choice. We've got intermediates on this restart. I did ask on the first safety car, I asked about the weather condition, and my engineer did say 10 to 15 minutes. There might be some rain, and here it is then. The red flag is going to go long enough for us to start on intermediates. Now, I want you to remember that it shows an intermediate tyre right there and right there. It's a green intermediate tyre. Correct? Yeah. So we go to 5 red lights, and my team have put dries on. Again. Not for the first time. The first time was Las Vegas last season, and we've restarted this race, and we've just fallen away down to P19. We're literally last now, and it's a bit late for that, as my team on the right-hand side asked me to change on to Inters. Oh my days. What an utter farce. This must be a glitch then in the game about red flags and changing weather conditions, because this time I double checked. I was on Inters. I was meant to be on Inters. We're actually ironically skating around the outside to try and make a double pass here, so maybe these dries aren't too bad, but in the corners they're going to be, in the high speed corners, they're going to be pretty damn rough, and the braking, there's going to be very little grip as we go nice and easy here. But it's just it's a world of pain being on dries, and the whole grid is on the correct tyre. On Inters, and Stroll's crashed into us. What the hell, man? What the hell? I know we were going so slow, but come on, you're the car on intermediates. You can drive around me. Thankfully, there is no damage somehow, because he literally drove into our floor, but we've got no damage. And oh, you know what? He's as we spin the car, literally that's how little grip I had right now on these softs. He's brought out a safety car though. This actually low-key may save our entire race here and give me half a chance to do well in this period, because we are going to pit now under this safety car and swap on to the intermediates I should have been on. That's to you, engineering team, from the get-go on that restart. But obviously, the cars will have to slow up. Hopefully, there's enough time for me to actually catch them up, as I have a late pit stop again for misclicking. Really to get back into the habit of which button I'm pressing. But yeah, it's I'm going to catch up on Inters, and we're going to be right there with the pack. Albeit down in P18, but at least I'll be with the pack then, and we can just get a move on and hopefully have some good pace on the intermediate. So Lance Stroll, thank you actually for crashing into me. You've helped me out here. What? Huh? Verstappen is on hards. Piastri on hards. Ocon in hards. We've got to come in. What's going on? We've just come out of the pit, and on the very next lap we've come back in. Oh my days. Oh. Wait, you're telling me I could have stayed out on softs and just jumped all of these people? As we come in, though, not everyone's come in, though. Not everyone's come in. Only a few people have come in. It's not the entire grid, because that pit lane looked very sparse by the time I came in. But we're in now, so we've gone from softs to inters to hards in the matter of 2 laps and 2 pit stops back to back on consecutive laps. It's not everyone. Not everyone's come in. Only Verstappen, P12 downwards, have come in for dries, including Piastri, the championship leader, Verstappen, who was the race leader, and obviously ourselves. And we're all now bunched up behind the safety car. There it is. It's already picked up the new leader, Russell. So as we come through... Yes! Oh my God! They're all in! They're all in for dries! Oh, what a finesse this has been. What a finesse. We've gone from last place to P10, having started this race on the wrong compound, come in twice unnecessarily, and we've still come out actually okay in the points. We're ahead of Gasly. We're ahead of our own teammate. This is unbelievable. It's a little bit frustrating to think what could have happened if I had actually stayed out on the soft compound tyre, because then I wouldn't have had to make any pit stops, and I would have probably had the lead of this Grand Prix quite amazingly. But I'm not going to give my engineering team credit. That's not like a 300 IQ strategy play from them, because immediately as soon as that race restarted in wet conditions whilst I was on softs, they told me to come back in for inters. So they weren't telling me, they weren't trying to suggest they knew it was going to stop raining, I should stay out on softs to take the lead of the race. Absolutely not. They legitimately, and the game legitimately made a mistake there of putting me on softs. But it's funny to think that actually if I stuck it out, I could have had the lead of this race. But it is what it is. I'm just still gassed. We got back into the points now already, and we're not even restarted this race. But we are going to be doing so on this lap. A very short safety car period, it feels like, with the extra time wasted through the pits, etc., etc. But here we go then. Russell is in the pit, so there's more people. There's more people that are coming. Oh my god, 3 others that didn't even come into the pits yet, and they were still on intermediate. So we're not only in the top 10, we're up to P7. This is incredible stuff. So after all of that, Verstappen, the leader, is once again leading the race, actually, even though he made that very early ballsy call. It's Perez in second place in the Sauber as, oh god, more contact there at that corner. It's another Alfa Romeo Haas who's at the Grand Prix, and it's another safety car. Oh no, it's another red flag. That makes, what does that make? 2 red flags and 2 safety cars in this race. Unreal. And we're only at lap 11. We're only at lap 11. This is mad. And it's Piastri this time that's taken out an Alfa Romeo Haas. And it's another case of cars piling up as they reverse through each other. I was very, very cautious of what to do at this stage, as we obviously went round the outside of the Alfa Romeo. We didn't even take our chance of ghosting through him. But yeah, it's another red flag. Thankfully now, I don't think there's any more rain to come, so there won't be any funny business about strategy. Although, even though it said the hard tyres, I on purpose put in an extra stop to softs just to clarify to the game. I definitely wanted to start on the hard compound tyre because I think we're going to be going all the way to the end of the race now, as it is sunny skies once again here in Austria as we go to 5 red lights, and we're underway once again for the Austrian Grand Prix. Perez in the Sauber with a real slow start. Ocon as well, equally slow, but he blocks me on the left-hand side, so we couldn't make an overtake, and we're actually so wide in turn 1 with a bit of understeer and wanting to give some room to the inside that Piastri has nipped through into P3. So after all of that, Piastri still doing so well. He's navigated this, so you can see why he's leading the championship by so many points. He just keeps on turning up in these top positions. It's Verstappen that leads the way, though. He's actually still the race leader through all this, so him and Piastri have done very well to come through and navigate this entire chaotic situation. Ocon is the outlier in the Alpine, who's doing really well. He's jumped up the order. He's locked up, though. He's locked up, and he's actually almost made contact with Piastri. He's held up the Australian so much so that we've actually closed up and we can actually make an overtake. He was like well over a second ahead of us, and now we can actually have a go at the McLaren. Piastri comes back at us in the brake zone, but he's put a tyre on the curb on the inside. Surely that's going to give us the chance to accelerate away. Bit of battery use, swerve to the racing line to block him, and we're up into P3, and we can now go about trying to chase after Esteban Ocon. P2 from stone dead last in this race on the wrong tyre compound in wet conditions. This will be the comeback of comebacks. This will be the finesse of the century, I really think, on the F1 game, as Ocon is very defensive into turn 1. He's really compromised his own line through there, and we're just going to wait patiently to try and make this move in a straight line as we climb up the hill towards the end of Sector 1. Piastri, though, has come through as well. It's 3 wide. McLaren, Alpine, and ourselves. Piastri and Ocon making some contact with each other, and we actually pull off an exquisite little switchback from left to right to do the double and get up into second place. Ocon and Piastri will fight quite hard through the next right-hander, and whilst they fight, Lando Norris may close up a little bit in the Red Bull in P5 there. It may become a 4-car battle from P2 down to P5, maybe even a 5-car battle, because Bottas is in clean air in the quick McLaren, so he may close up. Behind, though, you've got the 2 Saubers still in the top 10. Gasly outside the top 10. He's got to pull up his socks. He got a bit unlucky with not pitting earlier in that safety car period, in the wet. So he's got work to do, as do many others, really, that got caught out in all the havoc of the weather, the safety car, the red flags, as Piastri is storming through. That McLaren is so quick in a straight line with DRS. We can do anything there. And actually, in fact, I'd rather be behind him now because we can re-overtake him with DRS of our own, as we're now going to jockey for position tyre wall to tyre wall there, as we're trying to play a bit of chicken of who's going to brake later. It was him, but we actually get the better line on the outside. That's where the racing line is, and we're able to get a much better exit to get back into second place. Piastri now under massive pressure from Ocon once again. This time the Alpine's the one on the outside, and there is Lando Norris. He's joined the party. Ocon has actually made the overtake, though. The Alpine has overtaken the McLaren, surprisingly, and whilst all this happens, Verstappen walking away with this. 5 seconds the gap, 7 seconds the gap now on lap 19, as we're looking in the mirrors, and this time it's Lando Norris. It's Verstappen's teammate, and unlike everyone else, he's on the medium, so he's going to actually be very quick in the corners. He's going to fly past us with DRS. Can we come back at him, or will he use those mediums to walk away? I think now with the engine power upgrade, we do have some decent speed, but there are still a few glimpses of our car somehow being a bit slow off the corners or in a straight line. We get very, very close to actually making a bit of contact there with Lando Norris, as we were kind of moving about a little bit in the brake zone. Same for Lando, I guess, as we're both trying to push each other to where we want them at that part of the circuit. As the rear end locks and we make contact with the Red Bull, former title rivals from Season 2. It's all getting a bit too frosty here at the Red Bull ring, as the Red Bull car tries to make it a 1-2 for Red Bull in their home race, and he does for now, but almost immediately we'll come back at him, going to the inside. The Red Bull gives us a squeeze. We back at him on purpose to try and get the better racing line out the corner, the tighter acceleration line, and we do it. We're now alongside him before we even really open DRS and start deploying some battery. He's still there on the outside, and we're taking it nice and slow this time, not wanting to lock up the rear end this time, and we do maintain P2, but for how long? Because once again, surprise, surprise, the Red Bull flies by. It's cutting it a little bit fine, though, as we again lock the rears, drifting the car through. I really need to set the brake bias a bit more towards the front, really, in this situation, because the rear keeps stepping out, but Norris playing this very aggressively. We're getting very close to making contact pretty much every lap we're racing here, as we're again neck and neck. We can hardly separate each other. I'm not wanting to overuse my battery as well, which is a bit frustrating, because I'd love to just use it all now to get ahead of him, but instead we're giving him a bit of a fairer fight, I guess, because both of us are so equally matched at this stage. But I know if I use too much battery now, I'll get eaten up by not only him, but the two McLarens behind us, who, by the way, are just sat there watching this battle for now, but knowing that the best car so far this season, both of them are behind us, is a little bit worrying, as at the moment Verstappen is just dominating this one, nearly 14 seconds ahead. And I think honestly I'm the cork in the bottle here, because these guys, apart from Ocon, I think, have got way more pace than me, and we're just doing a great job at knowing Austria, knowing where to make overtakes, save battery, re-overtake, and we're just playing this to an absolute T of just getting by and keeping ahead of these guys, especially those on mediums like Bottas and Lando. But it's Piastri we have to worry about on lap 24, as I make a slight mistake on the rear end there. We had a little tank slapper, and that was enough just to invite the Australian through, and he's gone and smashed and grabbed that second place. Can we come back at him, though? Will he go defensive? Yes, he will. We go to the outside. It's oh so close on the right, but we go the long way around to re-overtake Piastri and get into second place. But every time we get him, he's just coming back at us, and that's just a horrendous corner. That honestly is one of my worst corners on the F1 game, period. That left-hander I cannot do to save my life, and Piastri just absolutely done me. He's exploited our weakness, and Bottas here going for the move, and we actually don't make it any work, because I realise he's on mediums, Lando's on mediums. If I let one of them by, we can use them to keep up with Piastri, because I was worried that Piastri was going to start walking away, and thankfully Bottas does just that. 4 laps later, Ocon is out of this Grand Prix. He fell away with some massive pace loss, and that's why he was having some sort of mechanical issue. But 4 laps later, we're still within a second of Piastri, and Bottas on lap 30 is now finally actually going to attack his own teammate. And whilst these two are side by side, this is the time to maybe pounce and go for that move on both McLarens and try and then see this through in the last 6 laps for that second place, which would be an unreal recovery as the two McLarens make a little bit of contact. Bottas on the right, Piastri to the left. We're going to get the double slipstream, pull out to the left and power past the two McLarens, dive on the outside to get up into P2. But what's that screen on the right? The gearbox. Oh my god.
I'm afraid. Watch out.
No! Oh my god. Double failure. Our gearbox is gone. Unbelievable. And there was no warning with that one. The gearbox, I just thought the gearbox was a bit worn. I was about to comment on the wear. Maybe it's a little bit worn, but no, it's completely failed. As we were making the overtake for second place as well, that makes it even worse. Ridiculous luck this episode. We end it with 0 points whatsoever. Double DNF in both races.
Smiling faces on the pit wall then after that superb win here in Spielberg. And rightly so, a brilliant effort from the whole team. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
A reliable car, that was the most important factor here. This was a real battle of attrition, and you could tell those at the front were trying to find a balance between running their outright pace and taking care of the car to reach the end.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sports that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win.
It's a great day in the office for Max Verstappen, who wins in the Red Bull ring, in the Red Bull, to take his second win of the season. It seems like he's finding his mojo a little bit more in Season 3 compared to Season 2 for sure, as he's, I think, now the closest man to Piastri in the championship, having, obviously for ourselves, having the double DNF. It's a McLaren 2-3, so again, McLaren score very well, very consistently, and that's going to make our life even tougher in the constructors as well, because I don't think Gasly scored very well. He only got 1 point there. He got 1 point, 3 points overall. I got 0 this weekend, so we only got 3 points as a team. Piastri gets 25 points, basically like a race win almost, because of the way the points add up. Verstappen's the only man who's outscored him this weekend, so that's not ideal. Verstappen's in second in the championship. He's 21 points off Piastri. That seems like a lot to still bridge for Verstappen. For us, 50 points at the halfway stage of the season. 50 points behind Piastri. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think I actually still have a chance of winning this championship if the car theoretically got quicker and into a better position? I don't know. I actually don't know now. 50 points is a lot. Versus also a very consistent, annoyingly consistent Piastri in the McLaren. It's Bottas who's getting all the bad luck and all the engine failures. In the constructors, 61 points to McLaren. That's a bit more doable with 2 cars scoring well. But I'm worried about that 50-point gap to Piastri. That is worrying me. Yeah, really not ideal weekend. 0 points on the board. Even after all of that chaos and finessing, it won't matter. 0 points. Madness. Guys, if you have enjoyed it though, nonetheless, because it was a pretty mental, chaotic race weekend for you guys to watch, I'm sure, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.